Hey folks, this is Kyle Keogh, and I know that I've been kind of off the grid for the last few days after I did my meet. So I want to take some time to do sort of like a video log in which I feel like after the meet I have a lot of things to say, and I want to just go ahead and say those things. And I didn't know what the appropriate venue would be, so I've just tried to keep quiet about everything, and I decided that, now's a good time for me to just go through everything that I'm thinking about after having done the meet. Just a quick recap of the meet. I did Royal Unity Meet 8 in DeLand, Florida. This past weekend I competed for the last time at 148 pounds. I actually competed for the first time without knee wraps since 2009. And I was fortunate enough to finish 8 for 9 on my lifts. I missed my third bench press, but I made everything else. I finished with a 512 squat, 347 bench, and 622 deadlift for a 1482 pound total, which is the new world record in that weight class. It beats the 1466 pound total that Tony Conyers had set about 4 years ago. And so that has been something that I've been working towards for a long time. I started training when I was 19 years old, and I started training specifically for powerlifting about a year and a half after that. I did my first meet in 2009, and I did it at 148 pounds. I actually bombed out of that meet, so I remember I had finished with a 310 squat, and then I bombed out on my bench press at 275. And so I didn't get to complete the meet, and my first official meet was a bomb out. Since that time, I had done an intramural bench only meet, and I had done a meet at 165, weighing a very light 165. I think I weighed in at like 159 pounds for that meet. But besides that, I've competed my entire career at 148 pounds. I started in that weight class, and this was my last meet in that weight class, so I essentially went from being a bomb out with a 310 third attempt squat to breaking the world record, staying in the same weight class, which is that's pretty cool. It's amusing to me because it flies in the face of how most people manage their powerlifting careers, but that's essentially what I ended up doing, and I'm very happy to get it done and finish on a high note on this last meet. As far as the actual total goes, of course I'm really excited to have broken the world record. It's been something that I've been dreaming of for the last 10 years since I started, and I've trained very hard and done everything to the best of my ability since I started, and I've had to, make my fair share of hard decisions. I won't necessarily call them sacrifices, because, honestly, to me, it doesn't really ever feel like a sacrifice, because it's what I want to do, it's what I choose to do. But I've made my fair share of hard decisions at this point over the last 10 years, and so it feels good to finally be successful and to do something that I've been dreaming of since essentially I started, and I had imagined what it was going to feel like to pull that last deadlift probably close to 1 billion times in my head. I think every time before I went to bed, and every time when I woke up in the morning, and through the day, I would think about it and envision it, and going through that moment and feeling the things that I had felt when I would get my heart rate going when I was thinking about it and dreaming about it. It was a pretty surreal experience. It's one that at this point still doesn't feel real. It still doesn't feel like it happened to me. It feels like I watched somebody else do it. And it was an interesting, let me put it this way, singular experience in my life that I don't expect to have happen again. It's something that's very hard for me to articulate, and I just feel very fortunate that I was able to get to experience that for a few seconds, and it's something that I'm gonna remember, I think, for the rest of my life. As far as the 1482 goes, it's the world record, but I don't really consider myself to be the best lifter in the weight class. The total that I broke, certainly I think that Tony Conyers is a far better lifter than me, and I don't really think there's any doubt about that. If you don't know who he is, he's in his mid-50s now, but he's been competing at a high level for at least the last 30 years. He just totaled 1640, weighing 156 pounds. He chose not to cut weight to 148, but I'm essentially bigger than him and far weaker than him. I don't consider myself to be in his league at all. I'm appreciative of breaking his record, but I don't think that certainly that doesn't make me better than him. Let me put it that way. I also think that there are a lot of other really good lifters in the weight class who, to me, are doing more impressive things. I look at some of the lifters now in USAPL and some of the lifters in the IPF who are putting up totals in the low to mid 1400s, doing so with everything that comes with competing in the USAPL, the IPF, doing so drug-free, or doing so at least drug-tested, if you want to make that distinction, doing so with a 2-hour weigh-in. So these are guys that are naturally around 145 pounds, doing so with a smaller weight class, so 145 pounds. To me, those are some pretty incredible numbers, and I don't want to sit here and say that I'm the best or that I'm better than these guys, because I'm totaling marginally more than somebody who's on meet day, probably weighing about 20 pounds less, and is competing in a drug-tested meet, and is doing so with different equipment than me. That it's just not fair, and I don't think honest of me to go and say that. My record is my record, and I stand behind it, and I'm appreciative of it, but I don't think that it necessarily makes me the best. And that's just how I feel about it. I feel like there's a lot more that I have to do, and I look forward to that challenge. But I just wanted to clarify those two things. That I don't necessarily think that the record makes me the best lifter or anything like that. I want to take just a second to thank everybody that has helped me over the last 10 years to get to where I am. Whether you have been somebody who's played a real formative role in my development, or somebody who has just assisted me at one point or another. I certainly really appreciate all the help, and as a mental exercise, I tried really hard for the last month before I was going to do this meet to just take some time every day to think about and go through year by year the people that have been in my life and the people that have assisted me. I haven't gotten anywhere near as far as I want to in thanking those people, but I am trying to thank people individually, and it is probably going to take me a long time to do so, to show that thanks, but I am trying to repay that, and I guess this is just my way of, before I speak with you personally, just say, I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you've done to help me out, because I've been able to achieve something that for me was a dream, and that doesn't really happen without a lot of other positive influences in my life. So it's important for me to recognize that, and I do have a lot of work to do in terms of showing that thanks, but I intend on, in my own time, getting that done and attending to it. So thank you to everybody that's helped me out, and I also want to thank everybody that comments on these videos, listens to me ramble over my training, which is decidedly unexciting, and I'm aware of that. But I appreciate everybody that takes the time to write something positive. I try and keep my little corner of the world, whether online or real, I try and keep it a positive space, and I think that that's reflected in the comments that I get on, say, my YouTube videos and stuff like that. Generally, I hear a lot of positive things, and I try and return that. I've at this point in my training life and in my career, I've arrived at the conclusion that for me, powerlifting has become significant in that it allows me to connect with people, and it allows me to feel like I am capable of making a positive difference in the lives of other people, and I can be in powerlifting the person that I want to be, and that's very empowering to feel that way. And so, now I just try and live by the tenets that I set out for myself, which is to try and be positive, to try and be honest and objective about myself. I, at this point, feel strong enough where I don't have to lie about anything. I don't have to shift the truth about anything. I can be honest and objective, and I try to be that about my training, about myself, to other people. And I just, I try to treat everybody with respect. I try and treat everybody as I would like to be treated. And if you want to be respected, you have to offer that to other people. And that's what I've gone ahead and done. And for me, powerlifting at this point is certainly about the numbers, certainly about the training. I really enjoy the training. But it's more about making connections with people, creating positive relationships, and feeling like I'm doing something good with my life and being good for other people. I think that at this point, that's really the most important thing to me. And now that I've broken this record, my goals shift. Well, okay, I want to break the record in the next weight class, but in addition to that, I mean, that's all in service of giving me a voice so that, I can share what I love with other people and be, a positive influence on the lives of other people. It just allows me to do that. And that's a selfless thing, but it's also a selfish thing. I mean, it's selfish in that I get something out of that. I feel good about myself by being in that position where now I can go to a meet and people like me and appreciate me, and they want to ask me questions about training, and I'm happy to answer. And yeah, I mean, I'm doing it to help other people, but it also makes me feel good about myself that, that people respect me. And I don't, I've never really had that in any other aspect of my life. So if this is the way of achieving that, then, I'm glad that people appreciate it, but I get a lot out of it too. And, I greatly enjoy it. So I'm trying not to ramble too much here. I appreciate you bearing with me if you've made it to this point. But that's kind of how I see and how I understand myself within this community, at least at this point in time. And that's what I get out of it. And, I do want to just, I guess, say that and make that clear. And, I guess the only other thing that I want to address is what's going to happen with me in the future. And I'll just try and be as transparent as I can be. If you've been following my training, you know that I started supplementing before this meet. That is officially done. I'm now working off of that. I will take the time that I need in order to get off, and then I'm going to make an informed decision about how I'm going to go back onto supplementing and stay on. And that's essentially the direction that I'm going to go in. At this point, I'm never going to compete naturally. I'm never going to compete tested because I've done this once, and there's, in my opinion, there's no going back from that. It wouldn't be fair of me to go and compete tested. That's just how I personally feel about it. I'm not going to go and do that. So I'm going to follow this path and make an informed decision and be as safe as I can. But ultimately, I'm an athlete in a high-level sport, and I'll have to make those decisions once I get there. But I would expect that my plan as of right now is to compete at Raw Unity 9 at 165 pounds. I'm going to take some time to put on some quality weight. I'm very heavy right now. I was 172 this morning, which means that during the day I'm probably 75 or so. So I put on a good 25 to not quite 30, but 25 to 28 pounds since I weighed in for the meet. I knew that this was going to be my last meet at 148 for that reason. I knew that there was no turning back from this. My weight was just going to go way up, and my body was going to grow, and there's nothing I could do about it. So I'm going to come back as a 165. I'm going to work, especially towards the first half of the year, on improving my body comp. I'm going to take up until the end of next week to just eat whatever I want, because that's what I've been doing, and I haven't been able to do it in the last 6 years, so I'm just going to enjoy it for a little bit. And once I get to that point, I'm going to take some time this year, and one of the improvements that I want to make is learning about eating for body comp, eating to move up a weight class, but to do so as effectively as possible. And I'm going to take a closer look at my diet and see what positive changes I can make to that diet. I may or may not also work with a nutritionist, and I'm leaning in that direction. There are a few people who I think have strong reputations and have really good results with their clients that I've been following for a while, and I'd love to work with one of those people. So I'm going to reach out and see if maybe I can work with somebody for the last 6 months or so in preparation for that meet, and just try and get my body comp as good as it can be for 165. I don't know how long I'll stay in that weight class, if I'll move up. I don't really have any plans yet, but my plan is next year to go 165, Raw Unity 9. I'd like to put up a very respectable total. I don't have any numbers in mind. I mean, I do. I'd like to total over 1,600 if I'm going no reps, but that's just a number, and I don't know if that's reasonable or not. I really have no idea. It's just something that I'm going to have to find out over time, so that's not a guarantee. I'll do the best I can with it this year, and hopefully come in as strong as possible. And I want to be competitive with the top guys, and I think, again, if I do what I did this past year and just do everything right, I think that I'll be able to be competitive with anybody. I need to continue to be honest with myself and do the right things, and I'll be successful. So that's the plan, and so for the first half of this year, I'm probably going to be off the grid a little bit more. I don't think I'll be doing super regular training videos. I'll still post stuff every week, but a lot of it's going to be boring, and I am going to be working more on just monitoring my body comp and tracking the changes that are taking place, so you will see more, I think, in that direction. Doesn't mean I'm going into bodybuilding. Definitely not doing that. I would be really bad. But what I am doing is I'm just trying to lay the foundation in terms of a physique base for the next weight class, and that's going to be my focus early on. Once that foundation is laid, then I'm going to go ahead and focus on preparing for that meet. And otherwise, yeah, I mean, that's my plan for this year. I want to continue to become more technical on my lifts. I've had a couple of conversations about refining my deadlift technique, and I feel much better about my strength curve now that my squat's gotten a lot stronger. But I do want to make those refinements. I really need to learn how to pull without snapping into the bar, and that's going to be a mission for this year. I'm also going to spend the year working pretty hard on my squat depth. At Raw Unity 8, I felt like when I squatted the first 2 attempts, I felt like they were both a little high. That's just my feeling, but that's how I felt, and I squat a lot in training, so I have a pretty good gauge of it. And I felt like they were a little bit high, and I got white-lighted for them. And it's ultimately it's not my decision whether the squat gets passed or not. And all I can do to keep myself accountable is to do the strict meets where you're going to be held to a high standard. But felt like I got away with a couple of squats. Felt like the third one was good, but I know that with the big meets, if they want to tighten up the judging next year, that's what they're going to do. If they're going to be stricter with the depth or watch me closer, well, that's what's going to happen, and I need to be prepared for that. So I'm going to go back to focusing a little bit more on my squat depth. It was something that I had under control, and I got lazy with it. And psychologically, I need to work on it as well, because I don't need to squat high. It honestly makes the weights harder for me, but I'm just putting on the brakes more than I should be, instead of collapsing and releasing my hips into the hole. And that's something that I have to wrap my head around. I have to spend some time working on. But I'm going to address all those things. I feel real motivated to go up a weight class and show what I can do. And one world record is great. That's further than I ever thought I was going to get. But, having total records in 2 weight classes, that's an amazing thing, and not a lot of people can claim that. That's a good goal for me to have. I don't know if it's reasonable or not. until I actually try and do it. But I, you know, I like the challenge, so we'll give it a shot, and I'll do everything right, and you know, we'll just see if that's going to be enough. And anyway, that's basically all I have to say on the video. Again, I appreciate everybody listening, and keep checking in. I'll have more videos for you very soon.